Alrighty, Travis Wayne Goodsall. Before I get to the Jewish Latter Days, according to the Jews, and as Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are Jewish, therefore it's the Jewish Latter Days, not the Christian Jesus Latter Days of Christianity, and thus not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Completely different concept about the latter days. But I did give you a clue in the thumbnail picture in the previous video I just uploaded. Apparently nobody's watching this morning. The breakout video is starting to tank, and people are now moving to the next video to watch. The little honey bunny missionary. Did anybody catch the meme of the thumbnail picture? The video is Mormon sister missionary excommunicated, leaking copyrighted President Oaks' talk. So I had a sister missionary that was free online and put the quote, "Is it I?" Do you not catch that? I cannot get through to Mormons if Mormons don't know their own scriptures. And so we've got a contrast between two comment replies, or two comments, and this is a comment reply video. And then we'll deal with this and then get to the Jewish Latter Days. Comes from Mark, the Last Supper. It's specific wording in Mark, and Joseph Smith used it to call out Brigham Young as the enemy who was going to coup the government in the latter days. 19 July 1840 in the Joseph Smith Papers. And so thus, is it I, were those who were innocent and wanted to make sure that they didn't accidentally set up Jesus, the Jewish character, unknowingly. And so, no, it was Judas, as we all know. So thus I used a random missionary picture, freely available online, no copyright violations, to use her picture. In case people want to think that they're going to throw a beam and mode at me. And quoted from Mark, because she's not the sister missionary. She's innocent. And so this is what Mormons are supposed to be saying in my videos. Am I guilty of what Travis is talking about? You should be looking introspectively to examine the damage that the church has done to your mental processing. And you need to purge yourself of everything this church has incorrectly taught you. And the older you are, the more damage that's been done to you. Even if you leave the church, you still have the damage caused. And so instead of faith promotion, it's now doubt promotion based on the incorrect lies of the church. And so finding out that Joseph Smith was a polygamist because the church said so, faith promotion for Mormons, yeah, polygamy, hey wife. Nelson changed the law of chastity to polygamy in 2019. I feel the Spirit telling me we need to start obeying the living prophet of Jesus. I'm still praying to get the same feeling. I'll get back with you on that one, husband. Well, don't take too long, because Section 132 says I'm supposed to destroy you if you don't give me 10 child bride virgins. And so the correct reply to my videos is one of, oh my God, the church has done damage to me. Rather than what Greg Barron did. On the Sister Missionary video, he put, "You need professional help. Seriously, please get help." He's being abusive. I'm not sure if it was that one or another video where it could have been this morning's video. Again, another therapist, counselor, psychologist in that field, educated in that field, in charge of children, raped little girls and has now been arrested for it. Just barely last night, as I saw it this morning. And yet again, another case of how psychology is pure evil. And these events are the consequences of psychologists. They claim they're helping people with their addictions, and yet they themselves are the addiction. They make people dependent and addicted to them. And if you have no clue about this, you've not known what about Bob. I need, gimme. What about Bob? So yeah, professional help is an abusive claim. He's not a professional. And here he is, having been conned by psychology, is now weaponized by psychology to abuse with name-calling other people he disagrees with. He didn't even watch the video so that he wouldn't have pulled that stunt. Because I went over copyright violations and crime does not excuse or get claims of copyright protection. And so neither does crimes protect a person with First Amendment rights, or petitioning the government for a redress of grievances, or the press. Once you commit a crime, you no longer have the guaranteed protections of the Constitution. You have violated the Constitution. You have violated the rights of others. And so you do not get protected to do that. But this is exactly what MAGA bullies in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are doing. Purposely destroying the Constitution by saying that, hey, religious freedom, we're allowed to commit crime, we're allowed to resume polygamy, we're allowed to child bride marriages, we can murder the homeless. And coup the government. Religious freedom. Jesus is telling us to hurt you. And so, yeah, Greg's the one who seriously needs help to remove the brainwashing that the church has done to him, as well as psychology. Again, beam and mode. Everybody falls for it. Everybody knows the scripture when I say beam and mode, right? And yet, nobody apparently understands it or knows how to apply it in their daily lives when they say it after that lesson in church in their prayers. It's rote prayer number 57. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know your scriptures. Or Mormon traditional culture. The other person did the right thing. He's not quite saying, is it I? But he's asking. And he's asking the one and only right person to ask, rather than going to other people. Though it's obvious he's heard from other people. And so he's now asking me about it. The video is on Brigham Young Mormon destroys LDS Church claiming Joseph Smith polygamy. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Gospel Topics Essays confesses Joseph Smith was a polygamist. They lied. And I've done the videos numerous times. I've covered it all. I am the foremost expert on Mormonism. Nobody else in this church is an expert on Mormonism. Not the person teaching at the University of Utah on Mormonism and anywhere else in the United States or around the world. No, I am the foremost expert. Nobody else is. Not the people who publish books, not the people who are church historians, not the people who claim to do research, but as the Mormon explains, historical malpractice, which he apparently doesn't know that the term he's looking for is revisionist history. That's what Brigham Young did. He revised Joseph Smith to turn him Christian, turn the Book of Mormon Christian. It is an evil practice to revise history because you're lying and you're purposely misleading those who follow you. And so I've contributed to critics and nobody is believing me either. I'm the one who confirmed Joseph Smith Sr. rewrote the 116 pages. I'm the one who revealed that Jewish Kabbalah is plagiarized in the Book of Mormon and many other discoveries about church history. But ex-foe nevermos don't believe and therefore don't pay attention to my videos either, and they don't know. And they keep spreading the incorrect information that is typical for critical videos. And this one guy is one of those who had heard about this incorrect information. So he's asking me about it. And so he says he's a non-Mormon, never Mormon. There is no such thing as a non-Mormon. You're a never Mormon. But the church uses that term to claim that it's Mormon, us, or them, the other. And that's an abusive thing to do. It's a radicalizing, fanatical, terrorist, cultish mentality that the church imposes upon you. And so other people get caught up in it as well, as they accept the bullying name-calling that the church gives you, and then the church goes, aha, see, you confess, you are, so now we can punish you and treat you as the anti-Mormon, anti-Christ, apostate, Korah whore that you are, and that you confess to. Bullying 101. So number one, the guy has only one video. I checked. And he's advertising for this video maker company. And he did only one video to show how the video company works. And it was 5 years ago. He's been on YouTube since 2012. So I wanted to find out, see where he's coming from, see what he's all about. Nobody wants to do that to me. And so, first question, I can't tell if you are for or against the church. So what is your position? Which church? It's too vague. You need to be specific. Is it the church that Joseph Smith founded, which is Jewish? Then the answer is yes. I am for it. If it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, no, I'm not for it. If it's Christianity, no, I'm not for it. If it's Orthodox Judaism, no. They were deceived by Constantine too. Is it Islam? Hell no. The Prophet Muhammad claims he's the Jewish Christ, turned Islamic. So hell no. The terrorist and the child bride predator, polygamous predator, and yet all of Islam. So I guess because they don't educate their women, the women don't understand that Muhammad was an abominable beast. And so the men subject women into their abominable bestiality, which is not the same meaning. And keep women from knowing the truth, that their religion is a fraud. And so that's why I'm deeply concerned that women who seek asylum from their Islamic abusers claim that they need refuge in America and other nations around the world, and yet they still wear the clothing of their religious sexual abusers. That they are religiously sexually abused. That's what it means when Muslim women, Islamic women, wear the hijab. That is what it symbolizes. Just like for Mormons, their underwear, as Oaks came out in April conference and all Mormons went on vacation, and that was the reason for the General Conference Greatest Hits, with the specific title, Mormons go on vacation and miss the good stuff. Oaks declared our underwear is a symbol of our bondage. And thus why we must wear it all the time. And not even Exfo Nevermos caught this. Nobody caught it, just me. Because I was also enraged with that one primary woman who said that little kids need to stone people who don't believe. Man, I was furious. And then I see her getting congratulated by all the men on the stage after the conference ended, all trying to hit on her. Hey, Joseph Smith, he married other men's wives. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. The Danites. So number 2. What about the expositor that Joseph Smith had destroyed, which claimed he was practicing polygamy. Is that not a source? As I told you in the video, I know all of the different sources. So yes, you are correct, it is a source. And I know all about it. And no, Joseph Smith didn't do it. He wasn't even in the meeting. And this is where I need to go over the pattern of practice of criminal behavior of the Danites. Again. He also continues, and it seems there is ample evidence to support Joseph was in those relationships. No. Again, the guy goes over it. He's been influenced by the false information that came from hearsay. That is not evidence. Hearsay is not evidence. Fawn Brody is not evidence. Rough stone rolling, not evidence. In sacred silence, not evidence. Hearsay. And so Tim Ballard, I guess, could be the best example for you guys. The women claiming Tim Ballard sexually assaulted them, hearsay. Tim Ballard's sperm on the woman's dress, evidence, but not necessarily evidence of sexual assault. She may have consented. So evidence is not a conclusion. You have to assemble the evidence to develop a theory to have it tested for confirmation. That's where the difference is. And so hearsay can never lead to a conclusion. It's a fallacy argument to use hearsay as your evidence. You can't put a witness on the stand in court and they share their spiritual witness testimony. That's inadmissible. That's not evidence. Feelings are not evidence. Opinions are not evidence. And so he's now saying, so what documents are you referring to that are fake and accuse him of it falsely? Brigham Young. He added to Joseph Smith's 1835 Doctrine and Covenants. Some of it was legitimately from Joseph Smith because they were previously published by Joseph Smith in the Times and Seasons, for example. So the Book of Abraham we know is from Joseph Smith because he had published it in 1842. The Joseph Smith 1838 history, yes, because Joseph Smith finally was able to get it published in 1842 in the Times and Seasons. But the original 1838 document has some differences from our current published Doctrine and Covenants, or Triple Combination as it's called. And so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, having published the Joseph Smith Papers.org, showing the original source documents, evidence, for all things Joseph Smith. They are the authorized source. Our scriptures are now null and void. The Joseph Smith Papers is now our scripture canon. That's what authorized means. Not a single Mormon believes it. Not a single Mormon uses it. Because the prophets, so-called leaders, do not make any of the changes that need to be made. And so the morning video, there was the Mormon apologetic wannabe channel talking about Nephi not being a cover-up. It was a clerical error. And they completely avoided the Joseph Smith papers saying that the name of the church is not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as it is published in our 1838 version. And our triple, that Joseph Smith's original documents did not have it. Willard Richards is the one in the Joseph Smith papers as having inserted it after Joseph is dead. And so, thus, we now can conclude Joseph Smith never called his name of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Joseph never changed the name on his own. So thus, section 115 is a forged document. And sure enough, it all of a sudden appears in Brigham Young's 1876 Doctrine and Covenants, the year before he dies, among some others. And the date of which he is blaming Joseph Smith for making the change is before Joseph Smith did the 1838 history, visionary accounts. And so did Joseph forget the name of the church that he had just barely announced? Because none of the Danites forgot. As they were threatening Mormons and even going out and preaching that this is the name of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Here's the Book of Mormon, another testament of Jesus, rather than Jewish. And so David Whitmer was threatened by the Danites. And David Whitmer fled, went to go see Oliver Cowdery, and told Oliver Cowdery Joseph Smith changed the name of his church. And Oliver Cowdery was shocked. He's not allowed to do it. It has to be a unanimous vote of the elders in the meeting. That was done in 1834. And the same thing was 6th of April, 1830. The founding of the church, with the name the Church of Christ. All six had to agree to the name. In 1834, all of the elders in the meeting had to agree. Sidney Rigdon in the minutes proposed the name change. They had a discussion about it, then they had a vote, and it was unanimous. The Church of the Latter-day Saints. And that's the name that Joseph Smith still used in 1838. It was the Danites. Thus why I'm able to tell you when I do church history research videos for you, George Reynolds and polygamous wives, so-called, you need to check their connection to known Danites to see whether they're a victim of the Danites or whether they caved and joined the Danites. George Reynolds and polygamous wives. Do the test for any of them now. I've already established the facts. I've got the conclusion. And so thus, I have no problem or no concern checking out another Mormon from church history. And same thing with the Nauvoo Expositor. And so the Nauvoo Expositor was printing against Joseph Smith. The Nauvoo Expositor, the new Danite headquarters. And so To get a better understanding, we need to go back into 1838. Joseph Smith had just been sabotaged by the Danites, who took out loans from the Kirtland Safety Society that he had started to have a bank to develop the city in Kirtland. And the Danites were taking out loans and not paying them back. And so they were living high on the hog of the money that they had of a rich, lavish lifestyle, and had no interest in doing any kind of work to generate money to pay back the loans. And so the bank collapsed and 17 people sued Joseph Smith, rather than blaming the guys who didn't pay back the loans. And Joseph Smith was able to get out of those lawsuits, and so he had returned to the Mormons. And so then the next frame you see in the Joseph Smith papers. All of a sudden there are revelations appearing by Royal Skousen, who assembled them, claiming to be at certain dates in 1838. And you can see that with the forged documents that would later appear in Brigham Young's final Doctrine and Covenants. And so we can go over those, I guess. But there were others that were not published in Joseph Smith's Doctrine and Covenants or by Brigham Young in the Doctrine and Covenants. I am being spied on, it looks like. So 15th, or section 115, 26th of April, 1838. Then we go to section 116, Adam on Diamond. This is the whole Danite mythos about the latter days. That was their secret headquarters. And so the election fraud that occurred that year was because a regular citizen of Missouri wanted to develop the land that he didn't realize was occupied by the Danites as their secret headquarters. And so he ran under the campaign platform that I will develop the land that is known as Adam on Diamond, that the church now owns. And so the Danites, of course, don't want the land developed. This is their land. It's their secret headquarters. Nobody's supposed to know about it, so they can't go out and say, this is our land, get off. Because they didn't incorporate. That's what cities had to do back in the day. They had to get incorporated to be a legitimate city, and thus the Pony Express can come and visit them. And so instead of going through the legal process of getting it incorporated, which would have exposed them as the secret combination in Joseph's church, they then called out all the Danites to gather at Adam on Diamond and march to the polling station where I think it was Chris Stewart's how much older is he than me? That period of time would be my third grades. And it's pretty much only John Solomon Fulmer of whom I come through from that. Well, no, Yearsley, I did the video, but it was a long time ago. It was when I had a Yearsley who was following me, and then she was insistent to the point of abusive, demanding that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. So I had to let her go. Dear God. But his ancestor was the first to get knocked to the ground, and thus started the war. And it's called the Mormon War because the Danites, according to the affidavit by Thomas B. Marsh, said that they called themselves Danites, but true Mormons. Other Mormons were not true Mormons. And so you can see their extremism that they were doing. And Thomas B. Marsh was accurate, except for he believed the hearsay of the Danites, just like David Whitmer did, that Joseph was the blame and was the leader of the Danites. And so the sections, section 116 is supposedly May 19th, 1838, except it too didn't get put in until the final year of Brigham Young in his final Doctrine and Covenants. And the Joseph Smith papers even further exposes this, because the papers that were used to continue on to write what became section 116, even though it's just pretty much one sentence, is fresh ink on faded ink. And so I did the video, I did the Google search right there live on the video to find out, oh, ink back in those days takes 40 years to fade. So the faded ink was getting to be 40 years old by the time the fresh ink was being added to the manuscript pages, which became section 116. So 1838, 40 years, 1878. 1876 was when this was added to Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants. See, the Google search is not religiously biased. That was an independent, factual information. And when I applied that factual information to the document claiming to be by Joseph for section 116, it's not Joseph. Joseph was long since dead. See how you identify forged documents? And so, yeah, Mark Hoffman, with his forged documents, is actually laughable because he conned the leaders of this church. They seriously believed that was a document by Joseph Smith by a talking salamander saying his son is supposed to lead the church. But he found out that these documents were forged by Brigham Young. And he thought it would be funny to be a criminal to expose this church with forged documents himself, rather than exposing that these documents were forgeries. He made the wrong choice when he learned the truth. And so, yeah, still to this day, nobody knows why he forged documents. What was his motive? It's simple. The church forged documents. He found out, so he forged documents. Joseph Smith says that the biblical Hebrew text is wrong and didn't give a full retranslation of the Bible. So I became the foremost anthropologist of the ancient Middle East and had deciphered Paleo-Hebrew and then Egyptian in the learning of the Egyptians and the language of the Egyptians, rather than the learning of the Greeks and the language of the Egyptians from the Rosetta Stone. And then would branch out to make more discoveries in the Bible and other things that tie in to it. thus being the foremost scholar, not just of Mormonism. And so none of the church historians or ex-fo nevermo historians have done that simple basic research technique. And it's the same thing for the real image of Joseph Smith. There's been numerous images claiming to be of Joseph Smith, and the most recent one is the only one I now use, because I know the process of study, research. And yet there's a woman who dedicates her whole channel to proving that the new release of the face is not Joseph's. And she found my channel once talking about that and said I'm wrong. That FBI forensic investigators confirmed it's not. And so I checked out the video that she was talking about and heard how the FBI, who were former FBI forensic investigators, did their work on the face that they claimed was the face. And I went, oh my God, tell me they didn't make that rookie error. They did. And so because this woman does not understand how to do correct investigation, she just assumed that while they were former FBI and they were forensic investigators, this was their specialty. She trusted them, even though they made a rookie mistake. And the rookie mistake was that it was only of the bones. The bones lack the facial muscles. See, my skeleton, if you were to just do a facial reconstruction of just the face, I would look completely different than I do now. If you were to do half of my face and duplicate it on the other side, look completely different than I do now. Same with the completely different face. And as a forensic investigator doing facial reconstruction of skeletons to identify the body, they should have figured this out. They didn't. And so, yeah, the one that they have is devoid of human muscle. It's pretty much skin laid over the skeleton. So, such is the way it is. But anyway, and so all of these documents that are tied to Section 116, Section 115, Section 117, are all exposed as forged documents now. So Section 117, this is a recent one that I just brought up that apparently the guy missed. In verse 11, Joseph Smith is talking to Newell K. Whitney. So inspired. Condemning Newell K. Whitney for being a part of the Nicolaitan band. You go to the footnote that refers you to Revelation chapter 2, verses 6 and 15. So this is a code name. This is not the name of the band back in Joseph Smith's day. This is a code name. The church in 1981's edition of the Triple said that they had fixed all of the coded names in the Doctrine and Covenants, so that only the community of Christ had the original coded names of Joseph Smith. They don't have Section 117 because it was put in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants the year before he died. But there it is, Nicolaitan band, from Book of Revelation. So this is not the name of the band. And so you got to do some research. And you find out that Christians have vilified this band with mythology that became cultural traditional understanding, and thus why it's being used here, to describe the band according to Christian tradition. That they were not only polygamist, but they passed around their wives to the other members of the band. It's a whole wife-swapping, swinging, gangbang orgy. And they were militant, enforcing their fanatical Christian views. It was supposedly pre-creation of Christianity, but it's Christians who spread the myth. Thus the bias. They are called Christian when they were not Christian. They were a rogue group. But Christians are the ones that presented the myth that is being used for this name of the band. And we're enforcing their fanatical religious beliefs with violence, murder, just like Muhammad. Okay? And of all their secret abominations. So this is a group that's a secret combination within Joseph's church. Joseph Smith found out about it, supposedly, according to what we're seeing here, and condemns Newell K. Whitney for it. Get out of it. But then says, now come up to the land of Adam-on-Diamond and be the presiding bishop. July 8th, 1838. We just got over exposing section 116 as a forged document. Joseph Smith did not name Adam-on-Diamond. That was the Danite secret headquarters of Brigham Young, because it was Brigham Young's document that Brigham Young put in his Doctrine and Covenants the year before he died. And so section 117 is not by Joseph either. It's the same Brighamite Danites. You assemble the evidence, you develop a theory, you run the tests, and you get facts. So that once you've established facts, now you can take other information and you can see how it fits into the factual information. And so what Brigham Young is doing here is forgetting that in 1838 the Danites were framing and blaming Joseph for being the leader of the Danites, of polygamy, of banging other men's wives, of burning down homes and raping women and little girls and murdering people. But it was all the Danites. Joseph Smith was 2 days horse ride away. He was busy in Far West selling land to Emma. It's in the Joseph Smith papers. Joseph Smith, in the Joseph Smith papers, has an alibi. And yet Brigham Young snuck in post-dated documents, predated documents, saying that Joseph Smith had revelation from Jesus that Brigham Young should go be with his family and not go on a mission anymore. In 1838, giving Brigham Young plausible deniability for associating with the band of Danites, which means Brigham Young was the leader and was orchestrating it all. This is why it's important to pay attention to all my videos, because I can't cover all this information in every single video. We're already at 50 minutes. So this was the pattern. Joseph Smith is getting framed by Brigham Young in 1838, having him accused of all of these different abominations and crimes, all for the purpose that we now know in hindsight to get him out of the church. He was locked up in Liberty Jail for months. And now that he's out of the picture, Brigham Young now steps up in the Joseph Smith papers as the leader of the church. Calls himself president now, too. Bastard. Okay? This was a coup. But Joseph Smith got out of jail. He did not get convicted. And so the Danites, because of the extermination order, had to leave Adam-on-Diamond. And so they set up their new city as Nauvoo. They incorporated it. And then they began, it was actually in 1838, Brigham Young started requiring payments. But the ledger that Nelson released last year, right before Thanksgiving, reveals that Brigham Young had a ledger of those paying him the band dues under the guise of for the temple. Joseph Smith was already collecting donations for the temple, separate, distinct from the ledger that the church is claiming was by Joseph. Man, that was an intense series. 6 hours. And so, yeah, Newell K. Whitney becomes the presiding bishop. But, yeah, and so Joseph Smith still had to be on the run, despite getting out of Liberty Jail. And there was another attempt to lock him up, as Nauvoo even locked Joseph up. This is Danite territory now. The people of the world don't want to live with these Mormons. And so the Adam-on-Diamond thing was only Danites. There were no more other people who weren't affiliated with the church there. And so when you hear the story of the myth of Benjamin Franklin Johnson, who moves his family in 1838 to Adam-on-Diamond, where he's then immediately arrested and then threatened to deny Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon, and then he says, "I never denied my testimony of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints." Yeah, you see with the factual information how he's became a Danite. You learn that he was a victim of the Danites, but chose willingly to be a part of them. And so he was a part of the war against America in Missouri. And so once you understand the facts, then you can learn to distinguish, because Thomas B. Marsh makes some claims that they're going to coup the government of the United States in a future time. And then you find out Albert Pike makes the same claim and associates it with Lucifer, doctrines of Lucifer, the Illuminati, Scottish rites. And you see Heber C. Kimball and Brigham Young being connected to Scottish rites, to the inverted pentagram of Lucifer, thus the Illuminati, thus the doctrine of Lucifer. You're getting outside confirmation supporting the inside coup in Joseph Smith's church. And so in Nauvoo, yeah, you're getting people who are innocent, not a part of the Danites, now dying of a sickness in Nauvoo. Joseph Smith Sr., Don Carlos, the guy I did the other day, whose wife then was forced into polygamy. And it was well known that these Danites were involved in poisoning. And so poisoning symptoms appear like a sickness. They were poisoning those who would not join the Danites, still threatening Mormons who thought, oh, okay, the headquarters is now in Nauvoo. Okay, we're moving to Nauvoo. And then they get there, and then the Danites, try to get them to become Danites, and they are going, this is not the doctrine Joseph Smith taught me. And then boom, they get a sickness and they die. So, not unlike moving to Utah. Dear God. They have not changed after all these generations. And so Joseph Smith finally gets there, publishes factual evidence. That's why I know certain documents as forgeries and editings, as the Joseph Smith Papers reveals it. And I've known them all, the coup plot, tied it all together. And so the little sister missionary that leaked Oaks, yeah, I didn't meet it, I already knew it. I've already been doing the videos saying that this is what's being done by the church. But the sister missionary leaking Oaks was like, yeah, I already knew. When you do the work and you get the facts established, to have an actual confirmation document of your conclusion that has been established as factual is like, yeah, it's now law. It's now beyond fact, it's now law, like the law of gravity. It's not just a fact, it's a law. It is a law that this Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the great and abominable church of Lucifer seeking to overthrow the government right now. It is the law. It's a physical law of nature. Because I did the proper research. And so, yeah, Joseph Smith getting out ruined their whole plans. And so now they got to go to plan B. And so again, you see that they're trying to get Joseph Smith in trouble with the law again. They're trying to get him out of the way. You see the differences in publications of the times and seasons. When Joseph is there and when he's not there. And so then we get closer. 1842 also is when Brigham and Heber went to the Warsaw Lodge requesting a Masonic lodge, when you understand that they were Scottish Rites and that they were pissed with Senior on 9/11/1826 in Canandaigua, New York, which gave rise to the Book of Mormon. And so Joseph Smith would then become the Master Mason of the lodge in Nauvoo. And these Danites are the ones who frame and blame Joseph for the temple masonry. It was Brigham. Joseph Smith kept them separated. The temple rituals were just washing and anointings. The Masonic thing was the Masonic thing. He already knew about the Masonic thing because he went with Daddy in Canandaigua, New York. Their meetings as often as occasion would permit. And that's why Junior was chosen to be Messiah ben Joseph. And then Hiram, who went to the Palmyra Lodge, would become the holy grail for Messiah ben David Moses in the future. But that's Jews. And mixed with Knights Templar. Thus, gold plates. Nobody wants to do research. Everybody thinks they're an expert when they're not. Or they read a book, now they're the expert. Or they saw a YouTube video, now they're the expert. And so as you read in the Joseph Smith papers, Joseph Smith doesn't really give new revelation much anymore. After 1838 and the Liberty Jail documents, his documents are not getting published if he was giving any. There's an occasional stuff, but Brigham Young never put them in his Doctrine and Covenants for very good reason. Joseph Smith knows, but you can't just convict somebody because you have spiritual witness feelings and excommunicate them. But he knows, and so he's coding his talks, revealing he knows. Thus the mark, is it I? And so yeah, Joseph Smith knows. And he's letting Brigham know he knows, and Brigham Young knows he knows, and thus he did what he did. So the Nauvoo Expositor, this was a consequence of John C. Bennett, who was a part of the Danites, and because of his physician position, he had potions he was giving the women that he and the Danites were raping so that the babies would be aborted. It was a contraception elixir. And he would get caught by somebody who was not in the band. And so he was brought before Joseph Smith in a disciplinary court, and Joseph Smith is not polygamist, and so John C. Bennett was excommunicated. John C. Bennett confessed, but then he would try to go back to the Danites, and they said, no, you got exposed. You're going to expose us. Get the hell out. You blew it. Devil doesn't support his own, John. You know this. And so he left, and so he decides to publish and or tell somebody, and then somebody published it in the Nauvoo Expositor about John C. Bennett now throwing it back on Joseph Smith, saying that Joseph Smith is the polygamist, that he's now the victim. And there would be a framing and blaming of the one woman I did the other week, and then one of them was in 1842, the other one is in 1843, and I think Sidney Rigdon's daughter was framed and blamed in the one in 1843. She never went with Brigham. She was a part of the other church that did not become Danite. And so these Danites were murdering and framing and blaming if you did not join the Danites. And so the women who did not join in their orgy sex were called whores by the Danites, when their women were the whores. To an extremist degree, dear God. This is how they behaved. They were false accusers of what they themselves were guilty of, all to destroy Joseph's church from the inside as a secret combination. And so the Nauvoo Expositor incident in 1844 was after Joseph Smith did his King Follett sermon at the death of King Follett, his funeral. And that's where he proclaims the biblical Hebrew text is wrong. It needs to be retranslated. It's already bad enough that the English translation is the wrong translation of the King James Version, or the Masoretic text of biblical Hebrew, and the Septuagint and the Latin Vulgate. But for Joseph to say that the biblical Hebrew text is wrong now destroys the Septuagint and the Latin Vulgate as being Christian forged documents. And then talk about some other stuff. And so he's also running for president of the United States, with Sidney Rigdon as the vice presidential candidate, thanks to the corruption by Thomas Jefferson, who, after George Washington served out his required terms, Thomas Jefferson formed the first party group in violation of the Constitution, Articles 4 and 6, in which we are supposed to be a constitutional republic, not communism, party groups, not fascism. So this election is kind of abominable, and I'm pissed that they're forcing us to vote for communism or fascism to run America instead of a constitutional republic. And every American is clueless, as the press even says, democracy is in danger, vote for our candidate. We're not even supposed to be democratic. Democracy is the worst form of government, and the more people in a populace, the worse a democracy is. Because you have to have votes for every single action you take, every single time by every single person. And then you have to tally the votes. Nothing gets done. You're wasting your time doing voting all the time. Democracy is awful. We are a constitutional republic. We put representatives of the people in office to guard the Constitution for the people. And we've never done it. The enemy has destroyed America from the beginning by doing a different kind of governing. And now we're in the final year where America is going to fall. And if we do not get a group to go build Zion, utter destruction. The earth will be utterly wasted. Joseph Smith warned you, the Book of Mormon warned you, the Bible warned you of the Jews, warned you. And even Christians with a wrong interpretation warned you. They just got it confused with the wrong interpretation. But that's the other video. Already this one's over an hour, dear God. And so, yeah, his false claims in the Nauvoo Expositor purposely stirred up anger against Joseph Smith again. You know, the Mormons are at it again, people clueless about the Danites. John C. Bennett would go on to form his own Illuminati Halcyon order, showing that these Danites were Luciferian Illuminati. Thus why Brigham Young put inverted pentagrams all around the Nauvoo temple. and thus why the inverted pentagram on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple and the Logan Temple, because Brigham Young ordered the design. And then Don Carlos Young, Brigham Young's son, is the one who carved the Eagle Gate with the inverted pentagram, which now, there on State Street at Temple Square, when you're looking right underneath it, points directly at the Utah State Capitol, just like the street map of Washington, D.C. at the White House. You know their signs, you can see their plot. And so, Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball went to the Warsaw Lodge to pay the Judas price to get a group of them to murder Joseph and Hiram, this time when they get him framed and locked up in now Carthage jail. They want to make sure Joseph does not go free this time. Numerous times Joseph Smith is getting falsely accused and locked up and out of the way, but he kept getting out of jail. You just Google search the Wikipedia page Joseph Smith and the criminal justice system to see all the times that the Danites had been framing him. And so this time Brigham Young was going to make it permanent. 1838, you can call it a test run. And so in 1844, this was gonna be it. Remember Oaks? 2020 was the test run. Here we are, 2024. This is it. The whole thing that I alone exposed. And they're gonna win, it seems. Because YouTube is aiding and abetting. And so, to make sure that the mob carried out the assassination, he also had two of his agents in the 12, John Taylor and Willard Richards, also be there at the jail. The Danites were the ones who escorted Joseph and Hiram to the jail. Only John Solomon Fulmer, who was in the Nauvoo Legion, the militia, with Joseph after John C. Bennett got excommunicated, was innocent and unaware of the Danite coup, the Danite threat, and thus why Joseph Smith whispered information to him that evening while John Taylor and Willard Richards were sleeping. And thus John Solomon Fulmer gave him his single shot because he wanted to be there to protect Joseph Smith, not John Taylor and Willard Richards. And so I've gone over the reason why. It has to do with the bloodline. Because of John Solomon Fulmer's faithfulness, he told him to go with Brigham Young west. And thus the merging of the two families, Hiram and the Fulmers, for the Latter-day Christ. So Desdemona Fulmer, all of us Fulmers know this. She was not married to Joseph Smith in 1843. And yet she's accused by this church of having been so. Even Brigham Young had a sealing document book of all the polygamous sealings that he and he alone was involved with after Joseph died. And so now we see from that book the abominations of the Danites. Willard Richards was the one who sealed to and had sex with little teenage girl sisters. And they were the ones accusing Joseph. So all of these women who claimed that Joseph Smith raped them, and it was only Joseph, they were passed around to the Danites. They did not mention that in their journals. And I saw, I think it was the woman from the other week that I did the search on, is that she did not write stuff in her journal either to frame and blame Joseph. The ones who were Danite wives were the ones writing in journals blaming Joseph and Joseph only. That's also another thing to pay attention to. Because Brigham Young was threatening these women if they didn't already complicitly go along with it. And I just, having 2 failed marriages of women who just didn't care to be married to me, obviously did not love me, and sexually abused me, therefore, because of the church's sexual abuse of us. I can't fathom the depths of hatred of your spouse to go around and bang other men. To have your wife go around and bang by other men. I can't understand that level of hatred for your spouse. And to have the first one be a prostitute. Just, I cannot understand why Mormons are still swinging to this day. And yet not a single one of these swingers will obey the living prophet of Jesus to practice child bride polygamy. My hell. They'd rather commit horrible, abominable sex crimes than commit the sex crime of child bride polygamy. Dear God. And so, yeah, I saw the Jacob comment, and I put in there at the top, remember, this is Jewish. In other words, prophecy and revelation. It's not talking about literal history Nephites having polygamy. That the prophecy to the Nephites is not to the Nephites. It's to those who joined Joseph Smith's church. Let's read that. I mean, what the hell if we go forever? Okay, and so the same patterns for the 2 coups. Just the second time they wanted to make it permanent so that Joseph Smith no longer goes free ever again. Jacob chapter 2, 33 to 35. Now put this in the context that it was intended to be written. Prophecy about you, Mormons. You are they, for they shall not lead away captive the daughters of my people because of their tenderness, save, because they did. Brigham Young took hostages, sex trafficking, polygamy, bondage, rape. Save I shall visit them with a sore curse, even unto destruction. And here we go, this year, in the coming days. And so, yes, there are innocent people, like the picture of the sister missionary, who did not violate the copyright laws because she was not the missionary in Las Vegas. For they shall not commit whoredoms like unto the Danite ancestors. Now behold, my brethren, and this was before that, because they knew about the Illuminati. This is the Illuminati practice, and they became part of the Scottish Rites. You hear Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Did Eyes Wide Open or Shut? Whatever the name of the movie is. Eyes Wide Shut, isn't it? Or is it Eyes Wide Open? I think it's Eyes Wide Shut. That orgy secret group, that comes from the Illuminati. That comes from the Danites. That's what Senior is talking about here. He's the one who wrote this. This is the rewritten 116 pages. And so sure enough, those Danites did it within Joseph's church. And if Joseph Smith could have evidence against people, not just hearsay or spiritual witness feelings, he excommunicated them. Yeah, this is the utter destruction that is coming to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for this just horrific abuse that is going on in this church. And thus the picture that I've used about the Mormon girls who's in temple robes. Yeah, for a church that wants to be so obsessed with banning porn, they sure do commit a lot of abominable sex crimes. Beam them out. They falsely accuse something that's innocent. Women's bodies are not evil, but raping other men's wives, passing them around, and that is abominable. So that's the difference. Joseph Smith was not in that meeting that decided they were going to go and destroy the Nauvoo Expositor. And Mormon apologists try to say, well, it was an acceptable practice to destroy a print press if it preached lies. Doesn't matter. Joseph Smith had nothing to do with it. That's the core you need to pay attention to. Arguing about whether it was legitimate or illegal, doesn't matter. Joseph Smith was not a part of it. That was to frame him to get him locked up. They were trying to find cause to lock him up again. And they got it. So, there you go. Took way too long. So it's unclear now. It'll be afternoon if I do the Jewish letter days.